So let's go back to adaptive for a minute. If you heard me the first day I talked about this idea of adaptive is we can go to a startup company and they can start using our authoring tools, let's say in CAD, for example, with what we've done with Design Center, and we can scale up and down, right? I think sometimes it's taken too lightly when we talk about how we're doing this. What I mean by that is, our competitors all have entry-level solutions and upper-end solutions as well. But as you know, they're not based on the same systems. In fact, we're more compatible with those systems than their own because it's based on Parasolid, right? And so we can easily move data back and forth. But what we've worked on is to make sure there's no disruption as you go through this. And, I was with a financial analyst a few weeks ago, and I was showing the numbers, which I'll show at the very end today, of where we're at on our SaaS transformation and our adoption rates for people using this. And he goes, your numbers are really off the charts compared to your competition of what's happening here. He said, now some of that's probably with the way you do hybrid SaaS and others, but others do some of that too. He said, what do you attribute this to? And I would really place it in two areas. One is this idea of a startup that's not going to have some kind of barrier in their growth is a big story for us, and it's helping us win a lot of accounts, knowing that they can start and they're not going to have to deal with some kind of version 5 to 6 upgrade that's going to leave them stranded, right? They know they can go up and down with us all the way through this thing and not worry about the data. The second part is it's still important to be able to sell product, and we sell product online. We can do that, those transactional sales like anybody else. But we do a large business through our channel today. And our channel are really just an extension of our sales force. We're very close with them. And Bob and the team have done a very nice job on the PLM side of our business to get the channel to get focused in their strengths. In other words, pick your digital thread that you think you can really make a difference on. I don't need a transactional person. Transactions are going to be done through a marketplace. I don't need you for that. I need your domain expertise. And what we're hearing from customers over and over again, and if you talk to some of our channel partners that are here, they'll tell you that is making a difference as well. Because it's not just a transaction buying a product. It's helping me solve some of the more complex problems that we're faced with. And we started many years ago when I was running sales, and Bob and the team have perfected this, is the idea of challenger selling. How do you talk to a customer about a problem either they didn't know they had coming, or they knew of the problem, but they don't understand the magnitude of the problem, right? And that's what our customers are looking for, someone to challenge them, not just to come in and, sell them a product. Tell me what's happening. How do I address the business issues that are coming? And so when we did this with Design Center, one of the things Joe came to me and said, we have to embed a data management right into the product. And I was hesitant at first. And the reason was I said, we're open. I don't want to force the customer to use our data management if they're using our authoring tool. And you might think that's crazy, but I still believe one of the tenets of what we were about is open. I think it's played well for us. It plays well for our customers. I think when you force someone into a closed architecture, I don't think that does well for anybody. I'd rather the customer realize that our approach is much better for them rather than forcing them into it. Having said that, we talked more about it and we decided, look, for a lot of these customers, they really just need something to be able to do this. And so what we did is we put in built-in data management, and we then said Design Center, whether you're starting with Essentials to Premium, again, no disruption. In the built-in data management, you decide to go full-blown everything data management with everything we do with Teamcenter X, where there's no disruption there either. So whether you're sitting on the cloud, we don't have another product on the cloud that doesn't work with your enterprise level solution. We've made it, and I say that because people kind of take that lightly. That's a big investment on our part to make sure that happens versus just going and buying a company and saying, I got a cloud solution today, right? And again, I think that's one of the reasons, back to the financial analyst I spoke to, is why we're doing so well with gaining market share with small, medium business with our SaaS solutions as we go forward. So, for example, we've got companies like this, like Vol Automotive, started with Design Center They do high-performance, ultralight sports cars. Again, they decided because they saw that vision of how they could go up and down. We got Tremonio. They tell us they're, with the built-in data management and the solution we put together, 20% faster design cycles, 30% faster design adjustments, and reducing time as we're doing this work. These are the kind of companies we're picking up that are helping that growth at the small, medium business side of the equation. When you think about the portfolio and what we bring together with Altair, I mentioned SimSolid on the first day. So SimSolid, being able to go to small companies like Demaray, the quote was, I think I'll have to read the quote here, "No other tool I know of compares to SimSolid's speed and accuracy for structural analysis. With it, we can efficiently and accurately solve complex problems in a few days compared to weeks it would have taken with traditional methods." This is their lead of technical lead for design structures at this company. Think about that. Days to weeks. Those are the reasons that we're getting customers to really look at what we have here. And I say this a lot. One of the areas that we struggle sometimes with the CAE is people are really comfortable using the tools that they started using when they were in college, right? In fact, it's one of the hardest places to break in sometimes. And I meet with their executives and whatever, and I said, the good news is your team is really comfortable with what they're using. The bad news is your competitor's running about 1,000 times faster than you right now, based on these kinds of solutions. But the good news is you're comfortable. Those companies will be disrupted. You can't keep it up, right? And that's where we're so excited about what's happening with SimSolid. But then it's also companies like Airbus. And as you know, we don't have a gigantic presence at Airbus. I mean, they use us for the wire harness across the board, and in fact, they usually have their, I don't know if he's here this year. He's called me out the last 2 years. He says, I can't tell you how great it is to work with you guys. I said, I'm sure you're well-liked inside of Airbus when you say that, right? He says, yeah, I don't have a lot of friends there, but yes, I'm telling you, it's totally different. I love what you're doing with wire harness. But at the same time, they're using SimSolid and making a difference for them as well. So it's not just the smaller companies, it's the larger companies, and even with experienced CAE people saying, look, I can move faster here in what I'm doing.